We
There
do
was
the
no way I
Shaker
was going to
Sillies.
do any promo this weekend,
I was so excited she had
because I got to set up.
The speakers new?
on a CD.
Those
You should
pieces
try
are
and
16
sing
foot
and
long.
do it at the same time. This way, all I had to do was jump up and
Go down
down.
and
I
do
didn't
the
have to
dance.
talk.
Yeah.
You have to sing.
I know they
'Cause it's
are.
like,
Close.
Left hand, is it right hand? What is it?
right. Shake, shake, shake.
They sent the wrong
I
one.
had a
doing?
good time, but oh,
sent us-
and I
How you
always
doing?
apologize. I told him, I
Now we're
said,
warm,
"We're
isn't it?"
supposed to be out 2 more weeks, and none of the parents went, oh. I thought that was
Here, you need an
good.
extra?
No, that's a good sign.
I also
what
have
do you
an
need?
extra,
Okay.
because I made a copy.
Hell yeah, I'd get it fixed.
I'm rolling
I
up
was
my
gonna
sleeve.
share that with,
You gonna be fixed before you get home?
did you hear about that? We talked about that at the, I guess that was at.
There you are.
Oh, yeah.
Bridget shared that, so I thought I'd bring that.
Lady?
Did you stroll?
Hi there.
It's too hot for
If
stroll.
you walk to your,
Yeah, it should be on here. Yeah.
Gymnastics tonight.
we've got a baseball game.
Oh, God.
Did you?
Does she like gymnastics?
Okay, I guess we'll get started. Like to call to order the Washington Historic Preservation Commission meeting of Monday, June 18th, 2018. May we have roll call, please?
Carolyn Witt,
Present.
Steve Struberg, Brian Bogue,
Here.
Rick Hop,
Here.
Danielle Grotwheel,
Here.
Jamie Holtmeyer. Here. Andrew Clary,
Here.
Bridget Kelch, Joe Holtmeyer,
Here.
Mark Hydrich, Susan Waterman, Sal Maniaci,
Here.
John McCreary.
You all rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I hope everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Could I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, new business, no new business.
We don't have any permits. The last few we've done were ones we wanted to get out the door, and so we emailed to you guys, and thank you for the responses. It's not, I'm sure it was going to get brought up at one point, but I just wanted to put it on here. We can talk about it now, because I know we've gotten a lot of calls, and I can imagine council may be discussing it, is the painting of the structure, the pot shop, the old
pot shop.
Hallmark building.
Yeah.
So as it stands, we do not have, we only do review if a permit is filed and an application is submitted. So when you're painting your building, when you're replacing your windows, when you're replacing your roof, you don't have to come into City Hall. And so really, there's not a chance for us to
Review it
review it.
previous.
Now, if you look at the way the actual historic preservation code reads, it does say changes to the facade. So that language is there, but it's not specific enough for us to be able to bring them in, because we can tell someone that, but if they don't need to come into City Hall, how are we ever going to know? And I haven't had the chance to discuss it with council, so I couldn't tell you the direction. But if council is saying that maybe we want to look at the possibility of giving some teeth to that, it would, I'm just saying if it would fall back on this commission to provide that language.
Yeah.
And then to present that to the P and Z commission first, because that's technically part of the zoning code, and then
Right.
to council.
There's been
I
some
would-
loud grumblings about that.
There has been, and we've gotten calls. I got people stop me over the weekend, more so than what usually happens. I think if that's something we can look at, I'd be happy to help try and draft up some language, run it by Piontech, maybe if you want to get a little subcommittee together. I think we have two options. One, give us, I will say, I wasn't here, but just from hearing from Darren, when we first even adopted the guidelines for mandatory review, voluntary compliance, apparently that was pretty tough to get approved even back then. That they didn't want any too big a government telling you what you could do with your property.
No interference.
No, yes. And so I think we have the option of saying, well, maybe we can create a separate application for facade review in the historic district where it's still mandatory review of voluntary compliance, but at least they have to come in to discuss windows, roofs, paint color. I think that'd be the simpler way. Or we could try and go for pick maybe some standards for mandatory review, mandatory compliance.
Yeah.
Maybe put that in there and let it get slashed down as we go forward. So I think those are two options. We could go in with what I think would be plausible. Again, we haven't talked about it, but I would be surprised if council wasn't in favor of at least the application for mandatory review, voluntary compliance on all facade, because I believe that was the intent when this code was adopted, that
There's
was what it was
just not
there
a way
for.
to check it.
Right. So I think we could create just a new application, go through that process. They still have to come in. But I think now's the time to do it. We're actually looking at a different code amendment in July for a different section, so we can kind of bundle it. Not that I want to make P&Z have 1 million people show up to the meeting, but I think it could be worthwhile to maybe go for some mandatory review, mandatory compliance on minor issues. Now,
Right.
I don't think we want to get into architectural guidelines, but we could get into building color.
Yeah, I think paint color is a
Yeah,
a
paint
relative
color,
basic.
I mean, if it's on the national register, maybe we can then, if it's actually not in a district, but actually the building is nationally registered, then maybe some.
Even not necessarily paint color, but even more broad, that if you're going to paint your brick, that's the biggest issue, is when they paint the brick, because there's no going back.
No.
After you paint that brick. You can't undo it. You just got to go back and paint it brick color.
And it has to be maintained or,
Right, and so that's the other thing. If nothing else, I mean, someone else on this board or on this commission probably knows better than I do, but you have to have a special type of paint to paint brick, correct? Or else regular.
Well, you should.
You
Yeah,
should.
because it-
You should.
You don't have to.
Well, and I think the biggest,
If they don't, and maybe people aren't aware of that, and maybe that's something that if we
well, and
don't
it's
do
also
mandatory
very
compliance, we can at
important
least
that
put that in
the
there.
brick and the mortar all be in good shape when you do that. I mean, we've talked about that.
there's a
with
lot of people who
signage.
paint their brick to hide that it needs to be repointed.
pointed.
Right, and that doesn't
And-
solve any problems.
I mean, and I'm not a fan of the color. I was more upset that she painted the brick, no matter what color it was.
Right.
It is not one of my favorite colors.
and if-
but that's her business color. But
Well, it could have been purple.
it could have been
If
purple.
anybody has been in Cowens in the morning,
Well, that's the other
it
thing.
is blinding. I feel so
Oh, that
bad
awning?
for the staff at Cowens, because I
It's like a
heard them
mirror.
talking amongst themselves, and they said that they are so blinded that when they walk in the kitchen and they can't see anything, they have to wait till their eyes adjust. And it is very unpleasant with the glare off that metal.
the metal awning,
Was this rented or bought?
she owns it.
It was purchased.
Yeah.
That's, would that fall under safety? Because you could keep the awning and sandblast it so it's not, or, whatever, take the.
A matte
so it's
finish.
Not so
I don't know.
blinding.
Yeah, because it really is unpleasant.
I mean, a safety issue, I think that'd be different. If anything, that would have to go, I mean, if the traffic commission, I didn't ask John to be here, so I'm not gonna make him speak up. Yeah, because
Now,
if it's blinding.
if you're not going to let
us.
us paint dandelions in parking lots, you can't be blinding people with awnings.
Yeah. So I would think a safety issue, it wouldn't be because of like your neighbors, say like if the waitress or something, that's a civil issue.
Right.
But if we could declare it as an issue for traffic, then that's a whole nother.
It is pretty bright. It is pretty
is.
bright.
I did. I mean,
I don't know.
someone-
I
they
don't
said-
know that
I
it's
haven't been by there
necessarily a
that
traffic
early.
issue, but it's not fun.
No.
I just want to say that in the past couple of years, we've had a couple buildings painted or repainted. First one that I can recall is Four Seasons. And I could see Pot Shop saying that is what we're going off of because they were allowed to do it. And the Country Living Antiques, that building was recently repainted.
Well, currently
They
there's
were both
nothing to
painted
stop
before,
them.
though.
There's-
Well, but there's currently nothing to stop her from painting her
But
building.
that's what I'm talking about. When there's been a series of paintings like this, it's very possible that people are going to think it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and paint my building. So I very much support a mandatory
Application,
compliance, and that we make stricter guidelines for painting as well as other issues we see fit.
I agree, and I think that it is a color issue because sometimes it is appropriate to paint the brick. We painted the brick on the farmer's market building because it had to be. But
Yeah.
it was
Well,
primed
it was
properly
al-
and
it
it was taken
was-
care of.
Well, and that's correct.
Well,
So,
it
I
was
mean, you
painted
can paint
previously.
brick. What Rick's doing down there, and he's going through strict guidelines because he's using his federal and state historic tax credits. I'm pretty sure he was permitted to paint it if he wanted to, but then he had to have the color approved by the state. So it's not like it's impossible to paint your brick, it's just you have to have the palette approved. And
Right.
we have a color palette handout.
Yeah,
Jamie,
it's Sherwin-Williams has
Do-
a
oh,
folder.
okay, you want to pass that around? Actually, I don't think it's on the website.
It typically says it, I think, on the actual swatch, historic preservation approved.
Yeah.
or something. I mean, that's what I,
National Trust color
not that I know,
approved.
but I'm just saying that's what I've seen before, so.
Oh, on like Sherwin-Williams and stuff?
Yeah, they actually have it on the swatch itself, but I don't know if anyone's had an opportunity to downtown New Haven, but the old Tomboy building, which would be two buildings east of City Hall. It's painted with a sunset and the owner just, I think, was frustrated with the city, and they just went and they painted like a mural over the whole building, and it's pretty interesting looking, whether you like that or not. But, I mean, there's no requirements there either, so it's a potential issue, for sure. Well,
Would, Sal, if we created that application, would that be, would it be or should it be mandatory to improve the facade of a structure, either with windows or paint? Is that how that would function, in my understanding?
You could, yes. So you could write that into the code. I think we'd have to make sure, we have to be very specific onto what standards it gets up to, because we'd have to be uniform, where the building inspector would have to go in and say, yep, it meets,
This,
you know,
this, and
you
this.
have it repaired to a point where then you can now paint it. So we'd have to be very specific about what that qualification is, because it can't just be from inspection to inspection. It has to be, here's the guidelines you have to meet.
So would it be of the two options, so we would have to come up with some certain standards, like you said, for building inspectors, but then they'd also have to have an application that said, hey, all right, I'm gonna paint my building. I've got to submit an application to the Historical Preservation Board, and they've got to say yay or nay. Is that, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm getting the logistics of.
Yeah,
So then, just because I don't know the answer, how are we going to, because like you said, the only reason that we do reviews, like the way that it's currently worded, she should have come in here for a review before she did her awning, before she painted.
Right.
That's how it's
Like
currently
Julie
worded.
did with Four
But-
Seasons.
And Julie did, yeah. Because Julie came into our office before she was doing it because she wanted advice on how to make it look the best and so on and so forth. How are we going to get the word out? Because if somebody already starts painting their brick and we're like, hey, no, wait, you can't do that.
oh, I think it'll be easy to get the word out on
Okay.
something like this. I mean,
Okay.
it's gonna have to go to P&Z and council. That's two different opportunities for the Missourian to get it.
Got it.
And I mean, I won't be surprised if we get enough pushback from people that there's gonna be some discussions on this, that it's gonna be
Yeah.
well talked about.
You have a public hearing, they'll be here.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where we can air the issue of everybody likes to complain when something like this happens. If you don't want something like this to happen, you need to empower a body such as ours to stop it
Right.
from happening.
Well, Darren, I mean, I tell you, Darren has said for quite a while that all it takes is to get some teeth in historic preservation is for someone to paint a building pink.
Yes.
In this case, it just happened to be green.
Yes.
Close enough.
He's right.
Most government regulations are reactive to a situation.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
like
human
anything
nature,
else.
Most human
I mean-
nature. Yeah.
Right.
it's reactive.
Right.
So this is, you don't have a
And-
problem until a problem, until.
Because we always talk about, the way everything's worded right now. I mean, we're lucky that someone who's sensitive to our infill and how we want things to look in downtown owns those two lots where the buildings collapsed on Main Street. Because someone could very easily put a Quonset hut or a 9-story glass building there, as long as it
could.
followed code. Because there's nothing there's nothing there for us to say. We could say, please don't do that, and they could do it anyway.
Right. Other thing, and I know this is kind of changing directions. I do also want to be tasteful in how we go about this because, I mean, it's still a property owner, business owner downtown who did this. And so we want to make sure, I mean, that's driving this. And so one thing is if you guys hear complaints, make sure you kind of get them in writing because I don't want it to be just
Hearsay.
a
So-and-so
group of
told-
commission members and city staff thought they didn't like the color, so they made a code
Right,
amendment.
no.
And I think that's what we also need to be careful of, that this is not a taste issue. This is not we don't like the color. It's that the color is not appropriate for a historic building. It's not because we don't like the specific color. It's because it doesn't fit into the fabric of the neighborhood that it's in. Just like we've had a lot of other things that we've reviewed, and there have been things that maybe we don't personally care for taste-wise, but as long as it's following the rules, we're not we're not making judgment on someone else's taste. We're making a judgment on whether or not it fits in the historic guidelines that we want to have in our historic districts.
It's about painting the brick, no matter what.
Really, I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
So,
And that's what we gotta
I'm grateful she.
iterate too, that it's not about your color choice.
Yeah.
It's about painting the brick.
Yeah, and the
Even though
only,
it's not a very good color. We still can't.
well, I will say, I mean, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the existing brick there wasn't.
it's not the original brick.
It wasn't the original
No.
historic brick, so I don't, I mean, in
And
this
that's-
case, it made.
It's like a facade up to like 50.
Because when Jamie emailed and I went and I looked and my thought was, the only thing I can say is, thank God it's not the original brick that she painted. It's that addition. And when they put that addition on, they bricked all the way across the front of the original building.
Right,
She
so
did
that's what I'm
the
saying, whenever,
second, the
it's
two-story.
maybe inappropriate for brick, well, this isn't necessarily a historic brick.
No, but this gives us something to
To start from.
inspire thought and discussion.
Well, and maybe we don't have to come to a decision tonight, but what direction of how specific, if we want to propose a
I-
code
I would-
amendment?
I would see what kind of interest you, if it comes up tonight,
I don't, it's not on the agenda tonight.
yeah.
I just,
But,
Ain't gonna come up necessarily.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because I know people have been calling about it.
If we're going to get a small subcommittee of us together to try and figure this out, I would be interested in helping with that.
Okay, and, all right, I would recommend that, and let's do that sooner rather than later, because if we want to do it in July, P and Z's July 9th, that's
right.
coming up.
Is there anybody else that would be interested to be on the subcommittee? I'd be willing
Yes,
to do
I'll do
that.
it, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we've just about got.
Everybody?
I think everyone.
If we, Jamie, if you talk to Sal and see if you can come up with a meeting.
That's what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, we'll have to, Rick brought up a good point about murals. So I think that would probably fall into that variance thing, like that you would have to like go to P and Z for other variances. I think that would have to fall into that kind of category.
Hope they would. If somebody wanted to paint a mural on the side of their building,
And they have a brick building or whatever, however we end up wording it. I mean, there would still
Oh,
be
I
a-
see what you're saying, correct. I thought you meant right now, yeah.
No, yeah. Right now they can do whatever they want.
Right. No, and you're right. That's why we'd have to be very. I don't want this to be
I mean,
haphazardly done, where we're
Right.
designing the code. We're writing a code based on one specific situation.
right.
But as far as the murals, that again, that's where this business about the brick, the face of the brick has to be in excellent shape, tuck pointing everything before you apply, and again, it's very precise. That mural downtown is on a concrete wall.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a little different than, but,
Well, but if someone wanted to paint on brick, though, for
Exactly.
I mean, I think that would probably fall into a variance process, but then we could enforce, like, painting that mural on that concrete. It was not a matter of just showing up with
Right.
paint and painting that mural. There was a lot of preparation that had to go in that so that it would be long lasting, and that's also something that we would be able
right.
to
Well,
advise on.
we have the Public Arts Commission, which I think could review that, and I know it's just the phrasing is a variance, but it is kind of a rule of thumb when you don't want to write a code anticipating variances, so you
Right.
want to write in that section where
Okay.
a mural would be permissible under these conditions, because you want to try and avoid a variance at all costs. I mean,
This is why we need you, Sal.
see, that's right.
but I would be, I mean, if this is a good time, we could do a week from today at 6, because I have to be here at 7 anyway, so we could just talk for an hour before.
Okay.
No.
I can be here.
I can't.
No.
Don't
No, well, we
count
can-
you guys. No, Jeff's on the library, so I'm.
Oh, that's right.
I gotta look for.
Well, I'm sure that Penny has excellent ideas about not painting brick.
Let's see how her attitude is. We might come together.
Okay, that'd be the, on Monday, the 25th.
Yeah, a week from today. And I'll try and find, and if other people want to maybe just Google some stuff, if you can find some codes, I mean, I'll look as well, but
I was just gonna call
I've
my
got a
friend
busy
who's in
week coming up.
Nebraska, who
Yeah.
does SHPO for Nebraska.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay.
Just gonna call him.
yeah.
The Google.
I mean, and then I'll call my contact at our state level, but I'm gone Friday too, so
And I think that
running out of time here this week.
Beatrice, Nebraska,
Oh, yeah.
I'm in constant contact with their Main Street program because they have a window grant program that we're trying to emulate. I'll touch base with him and see what he can send me on that as well.
Funny, I went to that economic development course with their economic development director. I had never even heard of that town.
It's a really cool town. It's a lot bigger than Washington, but it's a lot like Washington. It's way more spread out than we are. It's a cool town, though.
That's because they don't have hills.
No, you're right. It's very flat
It's
there.
very flat.
And it is Beatrice, not Beatrice.
That's true.
Beatrice.
They get very upset when
Kinda
you say
like
Beatrice.
Versailles, Missouri.
Yeah,
right,
Versailles.
Versailles, yes.
Milan.
J-Pan.
Absolutely.
Nevada. We could go on for a
I know.
long time.
Can of worms.
Okay. Well, this is good. This is good.
Oh, I'm excited.
This, look, we look on this as a very positive opportunity
Yeah.
to maybe put something together. So that's great. Okay, is there any other further new business? Thank you, Sal. That was.
It was very inspiring, Sal. Thank you.
Yes, it was.
So welcome.
Okay, old business, International Shoe District.
Oh, I do have-
Shoe District
Shoe
Factory.
District. Shoe
I do
Factory.
have good news on this. I found out today that we are have approved for funding of phase 3. Now, we anticipated that. We didn't, because the application's the same every year, but we just had to make sure the state was going to.
But they're supposed to be able to tell us what, October or November or something?
Yeah, it's been, and so they're still calling it FY18, and their fiscal year gets up in July.
Their
they
time's
just-
running out, yeah.
I think they just need to stop calling it FY18 projects. No, by the time I get the agreement from them
There's
and
no
approved,
way.
We're already in the next fiscal
yeah,
year,
it'll
yeah.
be next year. So they're a whole year behind, but our phase 2 isn't done yet, so that hasn't really affected us. Now, they haven't officially given us the funding, but the email said as long as we agree on the grant agreement, we'll be good, and we've never had any issues with the first two, so I can imagine we'll be getting that. They said the next few weeks, and then we'll sign it and hopefully get that secured by August.
It should basically be a carbon copy grant agreement. It's basically the
Yeah.
same thing, just a different
Yes,
area.
and different area. It's for $12,000, not as much as before because it's actually smaller. We scaled
Fewer
down the area
parcels.
because originally we just drew a big box and a lot of it covered. There was a portion of it that had already been surveyed that they can pull up, and then I took out anything I knew was automatically going to be disqualifying, like the apartments off of Horn, the
Right.
new apartments off Fifth. So the district boundaries are very unorganized, but
Jerry.
why make her go and, why make her go and survey those whenever you know it's not going to be, what's the phrase I'm looking for?
They'll be non-contributing.
Contributing,
Very
yeah, they're
good.
going to be non-contributing structures, so. But that'll be wrapping up. I have asked and maybe our lovely contact here at the Bank of Washington can forward this along, but I've asked the Bank of Washington if they would be interested in paying for getting the existing building registered on their own, because if they are truly a motivated seller, that's their step one. And I passed that along to Chris Evercamp, and I know he's a pretty busy guy, so I don't know if he
Did we
ran it up
get a
or-
bid on how much that would be?
$9,000, and they said that was actually cheaper because they already did most of the work. So,
Because it was in phase 1.
yes, and you absolutely, we can
And this
facilitate
is
it.
for what it,
The actual International Shoe Factory building.
Just the
An
building.
individual nomination.
thank you.
Sorry.
So this is what happened with the Deb Shoe Factory, which is Fifth and MacArthur. It was individually nominated, and that's when it sold so that they could stack different types of credits to get it renovated and have a lot more financial options.
Opportunities.
Yeah, so they said that we could facilitate facilitate that with Landmarks, but at the end of the day, the owner has to have the contract with them because they have to have permission to get inside the building and do all the survey. But yeah, when she told me 9,000, I almost said, well, you have half the information already, and she said, well, that is the cheaper version,
It's intense.
so.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's just if,
But you talked to Chris.
I did.
Okay.
So he's aware of it, but,
I'll talk to him then.
yeah, I meant to text him today and it
It's
slipped.
better for us to strategize.
Well, that was last week, at the end of that's past Friday, the one before. He bought a new house last week and moved,
Yeah,
so he was probably pretty busy.
He's out well, not out, but he's
Yeah.
busy this week.
Yeah.
Too. I'll talk to him.
I think that happened
I'll
like,
talk to him very soon.
We needed him to sign
When
something
do you-
today, so we had to take it to him because he couldn't get out of the bank.
Like it's probably not if is next year okay
oh, yeah.
for like them saying yeah sure. I mean we may talk about it this year, but
Yeah.
nothing may not happen.
Right.
Okay. Well, again, it's the idea if they're motivated to move it along, this would be an added addition.
And that's not going to be new information to them either. They know.
Right, right. Under education, does anybody have anything specific. If not, I've got a, Bridget brought this to the core meeting, the U.S. Fire Administration, working for Fire Safe America. There are new fire sprinkler tax incentives for small businesses. And while
Oh, yeah.
we're not exactly in that dealing, it's the same thing. It's the picture, it talks about historic buildings. And there's a lot of encouragement from the fire department to sprinkle either new construction or old construction. And the idea if you can get tax credits for local small businesses, that's not a bad thing. And I thought maybe you could put this in, we have a file somewhere. And if anyone is interested, there is information on who to contact.
You know, is it just commercial or is it residential?
I did not say residential, it said business.
Okay.
But if you look at that, if I give it to Jamie, if you want.
She emailed it to me, I just forgot to.
Yeah.
I was out last week.
Yeah, affordable for small business owners to install fire sprinklers.
Well, still good to know.
And, but I just thought that was interesting because, we're always looking at how we can help somebody develop or reuse or make the most of their historic buildings. Any other education, I kind of jumped into that, but curb appeal?
We've got some news.
Oh, news!
We did work.
We did.
Excellent.
Today. Well, actually, this has been a long time making. We've always had this list, but we're actually going to, now that it's summertime and the flowers are blooming and everyone's house is looking wonderful as well as their lawn and their business, we decided that we're going to start taking pictures very soon.
As soon as Jeannie gets back to me.
Yes, and we have 6 places.
Excellent.
3 residential, 3 businesses. And before I go through the list of them, we decided that we have a backlog of curb appeal, a backlog. We just do. And so sometimes it's kind of weird to go all the way back 3 or 4 years and just now recognizing it. So we've decided that we would like the board or the commission to approve this if we could have an expense of running an advertisement. And that advertisement is actually an entry form so that readers of the Missourian can decide, if they want to nominate someone for the Curb Appeal Award. So that way we can just get that from the public and then we can make decisions.
And so I did contact the Missourian today to just get prices on what it would cost. She did give me a price on a quarter-page ad. I think that's a little overkill for what we want to do because we have like 3 questions. So for an ad that is 3 columns by 5 inches, if we just did it in black and white, it'd be $138. If we did it in color, it'd be $190. We do it in the Wednesday paper because that's got the higher subscription rate. It's just over 20,000 for that. They also offer an e-blast, and they can do one e-blast is $180, and that goes to 21,000 plus email recipients. So we were thinking that probably we need to be in the paper at least twice, probably not back to back, but at least 2 times. And I think that currently the way we approach curb appeal is that we set a lunch date and for an hour we try to drive around, or if we both happen to have half a day, we just would drive around and try to find places. But there are a lot of things that happen that we're just not going to catch because we drive around once or twice a year and we just can't see everything. I think also this will open us up to the greater Washington area outside of downtown, which is where we normally are because the 2 of us, we work downtown. She lives downtown. I live close to downtown. But, this would give our citizens the opportunity to be more involved in what we do, get them more interested in what we do, and have, because it'd be nice to have their input on other things that we take on as well.
Absolutely. So the 3 residential buildings are 221 Locust, which is owned by Gina
Mayer.
The second one is Brent and Tia Kleesner at 300 Cedar Street, and then the Clary's home as well. What? Yeah. So we're going to take a picture in front of your house. You could be there if you want to.
And I think, isn't this year the centennial of your house?
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Deal. That's a good picture.
Yeah.
Photo op.
We're having a big party.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I always said I wanted to buy a 98-year-old house, so like once I get settled, I can throw 100.
100-year party.
That's good.
So, and then the three businesses are the
Pot shop. Sorry. Too soon.
Off the record.
the
We're gonna have to lose that portion of the audio.
Who's the lady that's been doing such a good job with your pollinator garden?
Sally Bachledge.
Sally Box.
Sally Bachledge takes care of all of her and her group of Franklin County Master Gardeners, and the Washington Bloom folks take care of all of the beds at the post office, and they do an amazing job.
So we're gonna take a picture of that. Washington Coffee Shop and Brick Rose
Beds and
Break-
donuts. Beds and donuts.
I should have written this down so I didn't stumble on it. I'm
No,
sorry.
this is great.
But those are the 6 that we had been following. There are many more that are recently completed or will be completed soon.
Like the
But we're
Jumanji
gonna
house.
Wait. Yeah. Well, the Canes have moved in, but we're gonna give it some time. And
We called it the witch house because all those vines.
That's why we called it the Jumanji house, because in the movie, the tree grows out of the house, and
yeah.
there was a tree growing out of the chimney.
It's a witch house.
Not anymore.
It
No,
looks
it's
amazing.
Yeah, they
really
did.
is.
He did a fantastic job on that.
I really like the driveway, but you'd have to cut it like, 3 times a week for you to be able to see it?
that's
It's
not
like-
the finished.
Yeah, it's that.
It's that like
Crosshatch
lattice style
concrete.
concrete, so
Yeah.
the grass grows. Yeah.
So it's purposefully will grow.
yeah.
But you have to just cut it more often than the rest of the yard so you can actually see it.
Gotta put-
It looks cool when it's well maintained.
Oh, it looks beautiful.
Oh.
And the owner has a very awesome name. His name is Lute Kane.
Cool.
Well, that's just one of the houses.
Yes.
So, yeah, lots of stuff going on. As soon as we get dates from Jeannie, we'll spread it to the commission, and hopefully we can see
And
a couple
another
of your faces.
Another one I wanted to add to our list to watch, the Underdowns, who are the ones who are renovating the old inn into the photography studio. They also bought one of our older homes here in Washington out on West Fifth Street, like Schulte's area, and they're renovating that as well. And as long as she doesn't whitewash the brick.
Brick with the red metal roof.
Yes. Whoa.
They just
worked
did,
on that a
yeah,
lot.
that building was starting to fall apart. They did massive, they basically just repointed almost the whole house.
Is that old brick one that's?
Yeah, that west wall.
The
is-
wide one.
Oh, it was bad.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of interior stuff in there too, which isn't what we do, but
Who's doing that?
Underdown, Julie Underdown, and her husband, who I don't know his name because I've only met her.
Mr. Underdown.
Mr.
Right.
Underdown.
Wait, which house is it?
You know where Schulte's is?
Yeah.
Cross the street, a little bit west.
A little bit west.
By the empty lot.
So there's that big giant empty lot,
And it has a
old
red
brick.
metal roof.
Yeah, I didn't know they were doing that one as well. Okay.
Her mom is interested in buying in downtown Washington if the house ever opens up. She started looking right after, there were like 4 of them all in one spot, and they just went.
Yep.
She was looking right after that.
Yeah, so I mean, they've already done a lot of work there at the inn and put that new facade on to make it look a little more like the rest of the buildings. I think they're going to whitewash that.
I say I heard that. Is that still happening? Because the brick doesn't look like the type of brick.
It's nice.
It's-
brick.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to paint over.
Well, but it's not, it doesn't match downtown, and that's why, and she didn't care that it didn't match the surrounding buildings because her intention was to whitewash it. She did say to Mark Hausman when she was trying to get some history on the house, the one over by Schulte's, and she mentioned to Mark Hausman that she was going to whitewash it so that it would look old, and he goes, "It already looks old. Don't whitewash it."
Yeah, he wouldn't.
smart.
He'd be the one to tell her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Why not?" And he goes, "That's terrible. You should never paint brick." So,
Yeah.
you know.
I know. I hope she does. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, she's doing all that to the end. So
Well, you know, and
Yeah, that is true.
go ahead.
in her mind,
Trade-off.
in her mind, though, in her mind, when she thinks of a historic brick home,
thinks of a whitewash.
in her mind, it's whitewashed. That's just the picture that comes up. But, you know, here, since we have so much brick, it doesn't,
No.
like, a lot of those whitewashed brick houses are in towns with a lot of frame buildings, which is why they want them to match with the frame buildings and they'd whitewash them. So
Do you,
she
real
hasn't
quick,
made a full decision on that yet.
are you looking for a motion tonight to get approval for the Missourian ads?
Yes.
Oh, yes, and was that 138 for just one
Yes.
time?
one
So
time.
it'd be,
And then do you want to do the email blast
176.
also?
I don't know, I just got options.
Let's not do the email.
Yeah, I feel like people just,
Let's
you see an email from the Missourian, I trash it.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
and
thinking
we
every
also,
other week, so 2 weeks, black and white.
2 weeks
Yeah.
black and white.
Yeah.
And
that'd
then
be like 276.
once I have the design put together, sorry, we could put it on downtown's page. We have
Yeah.
11,000.
Yeah.
We've got
There's a lot
city
of
of,
City's
we've
page.
got City of Washington government. We could probably put it on Community and Economic Development's
Yeah.
Facebook page as well. So we have a lot of avenues to get it out digitally. That's not just the physical paper.
Yup.
And, you know, obviously we can have copies sitting at Jamie's desk, and at the post office and wherever else we want to drop them off for people who want to pick up a piece of paper somewhere and not fill out the newspaper thing or whatever.
Jamie, we have money, do we not? We're not like poverty stricken.
No, we have money.
Yeah.
There's some left. So
Yes, there is some
I
left.
have a motion to run 2 weeks, black and white,
Yep.
as soon as you come up with.
Questionnaires ready, yeah.
Develop something to put in the paper. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you.
So I will mock up
Jumping on there because
the,
I was going to say, you know.
I'll mock up the ad, which will really just be a form with an explanation. I'll get it to Jamie and Sal, and once we make sure that it's within what the city wants it to look like, we can all take a look
Excellent.
at it before we send it over.
Just let us run it to the paper because we have a account with them.
Yes. Oh, I was going to put it on your account.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's great. Okay, well, you have just smoking today, girls.
Yeah.
This is good. Okay.
Once we remember to do what we're supposed to do, man, it gets done.
Well, I'm proud. This is good. This is,
Even though we just remembered today.
that's all right. The time was, you know, I don't have anything new on
We didn't
creating
know
new
that
history.
until you said that. So
That's
I
right.
remember,
Just impressed.
I remembered the other thing I said I would do on Friday. So,
Strolled right in and gave me all
and,
the info.
yep, she had a Post-it note full of all kinds of information, and she made it make sense.
Okay, nothing on creating new history. The Jasper House, has there been anything?
Well, the appraisal has been completed and it's on for executive session tonight.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
Well,
Awesome.
That's moving.
You are just full of good news today, Sal Maniaci.
He is most days.
Well, he's good.
Good to know.
Okay. Budget report, where,
We have-
thank you.
We
I
have
want to
money.
say that out of that budget, I got a check for the hotel, my registration, and a tour I'm going on for the National Association of Preservation Commissions next month in Des Moines.
Iowa.
In Iowa,
Des Moines.
Cool.
Just keep in mind, guys, there's funds available for this commission to utilize for trainings. And that
And-
counts for the Main Street conferences. I mean, if you want to
And
piggyback on what.
that is great. And also, if we don't use those, they're not going to
Eventually,
give
they're
it
going
to
to take
us.
them away.
I mean, this is a good thing.
So
Yeah, I
these
put them
are-
back in for next year, but I can already tell you got asked, how much did you use this year? And Carolyn's the only one, so.
So these can be utilized for registration, lodging, mileage, transportation, food. Obviously not alcoholic beverages,
Yes,
'cause
we
nobody
have,
pays for
in
that.
our purchasing policy, you can use it for food,
like a
one
stipend,
alcoholic
right?
beverage, I think. So, you have to itemize your receipt, basically.
Not a problem. I'm an eater, not a drinker.
Lunch, dinner, airfare, ground transportation, registration, telephone,
Telephone.
tips, non-food, and other items.
Operator.
Okay, well, this is good.
That must have been written before we all had cell phones, like if you had to
Right.
use the hotel phone to call home.
Right. Boy, I remember
Awesome.
those days. Now, Danielle, you want to tell us about the plaques?
So I went on to the SHPO's website into Franklin County, and I counted the individually listed properties on the National Register. And then I went and made sure that they were still standing. There was a couple of them that had been torn down. The pottery factory down on Front Street that got torn down like forever ago. And then the other one was Stumpy Sleeping Rooms, the hobo house that was on there. It got torn down. Also, that tiny little White House
Yeah,
on
it's
Fifth
still
Street,
there.
it's on the register. That's a
Wow.
national register.
The one that we've condemned?
The little tiny brick one across from where Brown and Crouppen used to be, close to Sonic.
Oh, nope, never mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's not condemned?
No.
I'm kidding.
So we had 31 of those, and then we had already decided we were going up Elm Street, and we'd done like half of the one block that we've been talking about. So there's about 15 plaques left on Elm Street. Tia's house is included in the National Register because it is individually listed. The Droege house, which is next door in between Tia's and Nieberg and Vitt, it's not individually listed, and it is a residential property, which we normally steer away from, but it is a pretty important family to Washington. And then when I went, Cedar Street is so much residential, I just picked the ones that were the most, which is the Tibby House, which is very important. We named the historic district after the house, and the Post Clinic. And then up on Fifth Street, the Brick Rose, the Tilted Skillet. And I couldn't remember if we did, which I think you answered that question when we talked earlier today, that we did put plaques on some of Borgia's
Yes.
buildings. So we
Yeah, the
should
convent.
plaque St. Peter's and the original chapel for Emmanuel Lutheran. And then there's probably 8 more that I just couldn't think of while I was standing in Jamie's office as I came here to buy my paint and sip tickets on Friday. So that puts us at 40-ish plaques because
Yeah.
I got to think that some of these, almost all of these National Register buildings, except for I think 3, are private property. They are residential. And even if we put the plaque on a stick at the sidewalk or the street level, some people may not want it. So,
But now that we know we have a ballpark of 40, we do a 10-year budget, and so I wanted to know, we're not going to keep putting budget in the plaques forever.
right.
So I wanted to know, and so if we do 4 a year, if we can be that proactive, because we've not done 4 a year in a while, I don't think, that'll put us right at 10 years, and so I can just basically not change what I've submitted, and then we'll hope that,
And I think we have 4 on Elm Street that are completed, because I know Carolyn did 1 or 2, I did 1, you did most of 1. So I think we might have 4 on Elm Street that we can take care of this year. But then when we get into these individually registered buildings, all we have to do is pick out the information we want, because all the research is done. So,
That is a good thing.
I don't know if this would, so in Elizabeth's hometown in Jacksonville, that when there's a historically significant building, instead of a plaque on a post, they've got, I don't know, it's a hunk of granite, it's maybe 20 inches by 20 inches, and it's etched in there, this was the such and such house, it was built by this guy was important, or this lady was important because of that. And it's really low to the ground.
it's like on a rock almost.
Exactly.
Isn't
So,
that,
I
don't
don't know
we,
if people would be more open to that instead of a
Yeah,
4-foot
for like a
post with a,
for a residential
Yeah.
yeah,
application,
I think we can offer it. We'll have to see how much more expensive that is. We typically get these from,
or if you could put the plaque on a, hunk of
Well, I know like the park, we did a tree for a memorial, and we got a rock and it has a plaque on it.
yeah.
yeah.
Now, it was small because it was just Friends of Mark Edgerton type thing. Yeah.
We do, that's what we have that at the cabin. There's a rock
I was
with a
gonna say, I
plaque.
thought,
Yeah.
His, Hani, what's his name? Anyway, Sarah Voss's dad was the one who gave us the money to do the beds in the first place, so he has a plaque there. We just gave Sally Bachledge a plaque, and
Yeah,
we
that
gotta
one
find
was
a
really cheap
rock.
because we got a rock from Andy's
We
construction.
gotta put a
site,
rock
so
out there.
The plaque was
So,
really-
I mean,
He's got some rocks. I
we
mean,
do, if we're not gonna etch it in granite, if we're gonna stick
it'd be a
with,
plaque on the, yeah.
if we're gonna stick with these bronze-looking plaques, which I think we probably should, because that would be
It's
a
just-
little more with what we were doing by putting them on the buildings, we can get big rocks for pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, if you're willing to steal them off the highway, you know.
You want something that looks kind of nice. I was just thinking that I would be, if I'm a homeowner, I'd be more open to that instead of a, a
Me
3-foot
too,
post
yes,
with a.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of those older homes are on a sidewalk
Mm-hmm.
situation. So you have a good spot you could put it.
And I'm hoping that a
has
lot of them
access to the
say,
public.
People to see it, exactly.
I hope a lot of them accept it, because that brings us also, again, outside of downtown, because we've got 6th Street and Jefferson Street, and we'll pull that out a little farther as well. That's all I have.
That's good. And that's good that you
I'll
need
keep it
that
in the budget.
information.
4 year.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle, very much.
No
for putting that
problem.
together. Conferences, I mentioned the National Association of Preservation Commissions, and in August, I will report what I did or saw, learned. It's always hysterical when you sit next to somebody on the bus who comes from someplace where they have mandatory review, mandatory compliance, and they have things like those with colors, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and they sit there and look at me like, huh?
Like, how do you
What-
survive?
How do you survive? Yeah, how can you say you're a preservationist if you don't have, you know, guns and rules?
Did you just say guns?
Well,
She said
well, some of these people are hostile. I mean, they are really fanatics.
Passionate about their history.
Passionate, that's right, yeah. You touch this building, you know. Then, speaking of that, Calvin Theater, which I don't think we have anything to contribute on that, but it's still standing, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
I still think it would be fun to get a crowd and get a picture taken with the sign, "This place matters," and not say anything, just stand there.
Well, they don't disagree that the place matters.
I know, but they think nobody,
They just want somebody to give them the money to fix it,
yeah, well, details.
so they can do it their way.
Right.
Me too.
Okay.
I fully believe that they think that it matters.
Oh, yeah, they do, they do. Is there any other business? Our next meeting will be Monday, July 16th, 6 PM, same place, same time.
Same channel.
That
Channel.
Same.
That's right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for being here. Think cool thoughts.
Yeah.
Brian and I were just talking this morning about how we need to get something so that we can enact some change.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. It's always
Yeah.
nice to
Hey, Rick.
see you. Not, that's not a guilt trip. I'm just telling you, I'm happy.